Before I tell you what I found in that farmhouse, before I show you the photographs that made 3 different police departments hang up on me, I need you to do something right now. Smash that like button in the next 30 seconds. Not later. Now, because what you're about to hear is going to make you question every creak in your house tonight, every shadow in your hallway, and I need to know you're committed to staying until the end. Subscribe before this gets worse. I'm dead serious. People who have watched this story halfway, they email me. They tell me they wish they'd finished it because the not knowing is worse than the truth. Drop a comment right now. Type, "I'm ready," if you think you can handle 65 minutes of the most disturbing historical mystery ever documented. And here's the thing, this isn't fiction. Every word I'm about to tell you is verified, documented, archived in German police records from 1922. 6 people, murdered with a mattock, a farming tool, basically a pickaxe, in their own home. Their bodies undiscovered for days while something, stayed in the house with them. Turn on notifications, because I'm releasing the follow-up investigation next week, and you're going to want to know the moment it drops. Trust me. One more thing before we descend into this. If you leave before the 60-minute mark, you'll miss the evidence. The photographs I took. The recordings. The footprints that shouldn't exist. People always leave right before the reveal, and then they come back, and the video's different somehow. They tell me scenes have changed. I don't know what that means, but stay. Okay. Deep breath. It's March 2024, and I'm standing in the Bavarian forest, 43 miles north of Munich, staring at a patch of land that shouldn't feel alive. But it does. It breathes. My name is Dr. Marcus Webb, and I specialize in Cold War-era European history, which makes absolutely zero sense for why I'm here. Hinterkaifeck isn't my period. It isn't my expertise. But 6 weeks ago, I received a package at my office at Cambridge. No return address. Just a Munich postmark and a single word written in what looked like dried mud on the envelope. Remember, inside was a land deed. Property title for 0.7 hectares of farmland in Bavaria, transferred to my name, dated March 1st, 2024. Attached was a handwritten note in German. You inherited this. Your grandmother Elise never told you. Come see what the Grubers left behind. Here's the thing. I never had a grandmother named Elise. My family is English, Irish, 0 German ancestry. I showed it to my department head, Dr. Carlson. She went pale. Actually pale. She said, "Marcus, the Hinterkaifeck murders. You know what those are, right?" I didn't. So she told me. March 31st, 1922. Andreas Gruber, his wife Kazilia, their widowed daughter Victoria Gabriel, Victoria's 2 children, 7-year-old Kazilia and 2-year-old Joseph, and their new maid, Maria Baumgartner. 6 people. The maid had arrived on the farm that very day, replacing the previous maid who had quit 6 months earlier, claiming the farmhouse was haunted. She had heard footsteps in the attic, she said. Voices. That's important. Remember that. Creak of old floorboards. Wind through broken shutters. Andreas Gruber had noticed strange things in the days before the murder. Footprints in the snow leading from the forest edge to the farm, but no footprints leading away. He found a newspaper from Munich on his property that he had never purchased. He heard footsteps in the attic. His keys went missing, then reappeared. His dogs went mad, barking at the barn at all hours. He told his neighbors something was wrong. He told them someone was living in his attic. They laughed, called him paranoid, told him to drink less schnapps. On the night of March 31st, someone lured the family members one by one to the barn. Andreas first, then Kazilia, then Victoria, then little Kazilia. Struck them down with a mattock, one by one, as they came looking for the previous victim. The 2 youngest, Joseph and the maid Maria, were murdered in their beds in the house itself. The killer, or killers, stacked the bodies in the barn and covered them with hay. Here's where it gets worse. The murderer stayed in the house for 3 days after. Neighbors saw smoke from the chimney. Someone fed the cattle. Someone ate meals in the kitchen. The police found dirty dishes, recently used. The family's dog was found locked in a shed, howling unfed. Whoever killed the Grubers lived with their corpses for 72 hours before disappearing into the Bavarian forest. The police investigated over 100 suspects. Vagrants, former soldiers, Victoria's estranged husband, who had died in World War I, except some reports said he had deserted and might still be alive. Victoria's father, Andreas, was rumored to have had an incestuous relationship with her. Some speculated the 2-year-old Joseph was Andreas's son, not Victoria's dead husband's. Dark secrets, family sins. No one was ever charged. The case went cold. The farmhouse was torn down in 1923. Locals said it was cursed, that even the demolition crew heard singing coming from the attic as they swung their sledgehammers. Axe thud, distant, echoing. So when Dr. Carlson told me all this, when she showed me the archival photographs, grainy black and white images of the barn, the bodies covered in hay, the children's small shoes lined up by the door, I should have thrown that deed away. I should have reported it to the police as a prank. Instead, I booked a flight to Munich. Pause here. What would you do? A stranger sends you property where 6 people were axe murdered. Do you go? I landed in Munich on March 15th, 2024. Rented a car. Drove north through villages with names I couldn't pronounce. Through forests that seemed too thick, too dark, even at midday. GPS lost signal twice. When I finally found the site, marked on modern maps as Hinterkaifeck Memorial, it was just a clearing. A stone monument with the victims' names. Wildflowers, mostly dead from the late winter cold. But behind the monument, maybe 60 yards into the tree line, I saw it. Foundation stones. Partial walls. Crumbling. Covered in moss and vines. The farmhouse hadn't been completely demolished. Part of it was still there. And standing at the edge of the ruins was a man in a dark coat, his back to me perfectly still. Heartbeat pounding. Breath fogging in cold air. Entschuldigung, I called out. Excuse me. My German is terrible. Mostly academic. The man didn't turn. Didn't move. I walked closer, my boots crunching through frozen underbrush. I called again. Hello. Do you speak English? 20 feet away now. 15. I could see his coat was old-fashioned. Wool, the kind you see in photographs from the 1920s. His hair was dark, slicked back. 10 feet. 5. I reached out to tap his shoulder. He wasn't there. Not that he turned around or walked away. One moment he was standing there. Solid. Real. The next moment my hand passed through empty air, and I stumbled forward, catching myself on the moss-covered stones of the farmhouse foundation. Crows scattering. Wings beating. My phone buzzed. Text message. Unknown number. German text. You should not be here. I spun around. The clearing was empty. The forest silent. My rental car sat alone in the dirt lot by the monument. I opened my translation app with shaking hands. Typed back. Who is this? 3 dots. Typing. Then, the maid tried to leave. She should have listened. Maria Baumgartner. The maid who arrived the day of the murders. She had only been on the farm for a few hours before she was killed in her bed. She never had a chance to run. This is your 5-minute warning. If you're not hooked yet, if you're thinking about clicking away, don't. The next 10 minutes are going to change everything you think you know about this case. I should have left. Driven straight back to Munich, caught the next flight to London, burned that deed, and pretended none of this happened. Instead, I did what every idiot in a horror movie does. I walked toward the ruins. The foundation was more intact than it looked from a distance. Part of the northern wall still stood, maybe 8 feet high, with the hollow frame of a window looking out toward the forest. The barn, where the 4 family members had been slaughtered, was completely gone, just an outline of stones in the grass. But the house, you could still see where the rooms had been. Kitchen, sitting room, 2 bedrooms on the ground floor, and the attic access. A collapsed ladder rotted through, leading up to a gap in the crumbling ceiling. The attic where Andreas heard footsteps, where the previous maid heard voices. Wood creaking. Settling. Or is it settling? I set up my equipment. I'd brought a digital recorder, an EMF meter, and my phone for photos. The light was dying fast, maybe an hour until sunset, and the temperature was dropping. My breath came out in thick clouds. I started recording. March 15th, 2024, approximately 5:47 p.m. I'm at the Hinterkaifeck site, former Gruber farmstead. Testing audio levels. I clapped my hands. The sound echoed strangely, like the ruins had more space than they should, like walls that weren't there anymore were still reflecting sound. The EMF meter spiked. Just for a second. Then back to baseline. I moved it around, trying to find electrical sources. There were none. This was the middle of the Bavarian woods. It spiked again, directly in front of the attic access. Okay, I said aloud, narrating like I was still in a lecture hall. Electromagnetic anomaly. Could be geological. Mineral deposits in the soil. Underground water affecting. Thud. From above. From the attic that was open to the sky. That had no floor. No structure. The sound of something heavy hitting wood. Breath catching. Pulse racing. Hello. My voice cracked. Professional historian, published author, reduced to a terrified child. Is someone up there? Thud. 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 Rhythmic. Steady. The sound of an axe splitting wood. I ran. I'm not ashamed to say it. I ran back to my car, fumbled with the keys, locked myself inside. Sat there hyperventilating, staring at the ruins, waiting for someone to emerge. No one did. The thud stopped. The forest was silent again, except for wind through the pines. My phone buzzed. Same unknown number. Andreas heard the same sounds. He went to the barn to investigate. Would you like to see what he saw? No, I said aloud, alone in my car. Absolutely not. I'm done. I'm leaving. Photo message incoming. I should have deleted it. Should have blocked the number. I opened it. It was a photograph of me. Taken from behind, no more than 5 minutes ago, standing in front of the attic access. But in the photo, there was someone standing in the window frame above me. A woman. Dark hair, pale dress, her face obscured by shadow, and in her hand, raised above her head. A Matic, car engine struggling to start. Grinding. Click, click, click. Come on, come on, come on. The engine caught. I threw the car into reverse, gravel spraying, and I didn't stop driving until I reached the outskirts of Munich. Until there were streetlights and people, and the solid, rational world of Starbucks and hotels and Wi-Fi. I checked into a Holiday Inn. Took the hottest shower of my life. Ordered room service. Opened my laptop to book a flight home. My email had 43 new messages. All from the same address. Hinterkaifeck 1922 at GMX Mailto. Hinterkaifeck 1922 at GMXta. All sent in the last 30 minutes while I was driving. Subject lines in German. You cannot leave. The deed is binding. 6 victims. 6 deaths. Your grandmother knew. Why do you think she never came back? I opened the last one. Just 2 lines of text. The previous maid left after 6 months. She heard us in the attic. Maria lasted 6 hours. How long will you last, Dr. Webb? Attached was a scanned document. A birth certificate. Dated 1921. Name Elise Gruber. Parents Victoria Gabriel and unknown father. Place of birth Hinterkaifeck Farm. Heartbeats thundering. Room spinning. Victoria's daughter Casilia was 7 when she died. But according to this document, she'd had an older sister. Elise, born 1921. 1 year old at the time of the murders. Where was she during the killings? Why wasn't she listed among the victims? I searched German genealogy databases, death records, immigration logs. Found her. Elise Gruber. Emigrated to England in 1923. Adopted by a family named Webb. My great-grandparents. She'd never spoken about her origins. She died in 1998, when I was 6 years old. I barely remembered her. Just an old woman with a thick accent who flinched whenever anyone came up behind her too quickly. She'd survived the Hinterkaifeck murders. She'd been there. A 1-year-old baby in the house when her mother, grandfather, grandmother, sister, and the maid were slaughtered. Someone had taken her away before the police arrived. Someone had kept her alive. But who? And why? 10-minute mark. If you're watching this in bed, lights off, maybe turn a lamp on. It gets darker from here. Comment lights on if you're brave. Comment nope if you're already regretting this. I didn't sleep. So could I. I sat in that hotel room, curtains drawn, every light on, searching. The Munich police archives had digitized some, not all, of the Hinterkaifeck case files. I found the crime scene photographs. I'd seen them before in Dr. Carlson's office, but now I looked closer. Studied them like ancient manuscripts. The barn. The bodies under hay. Andreas's skull caved in. Casilia Sr. with defensive wounds on her hands, little Casilia, 7 years old, her face frozen in terror. Victoria lying beside her, one hand reaching toward her daughter even in death. But there were other photos. The house interior. The kitchen table set for 7, not 6. 7 plates. 7 chairs. The police report noted this. An additional place setting suggests the possibility of a visitor or 7th resident unknown to neighbors. Who was the 7th person? Papers rustling. Distant church bells. I found witness statements. The neighbors, the Schlittenbauers, had noticed smoke from the Gruber chimney on April 1st and 2nd, 2 and 3 days after the estimated time of death. Someone had been there. Living in the house. Michael Pearl, a neighbor, stated, I saw a figure in the window on the evening of April 1st. I assumed it was Andreas, though I remarked to my wife that his posture seemed strange, too straight, too still. Another neighbor, Crescents Regia, I heard singing. A lullaby, I think. Coming from the direction of the Gruber farm on the night of April 2nd. I thought perhaps young Casilia was having trouble sleeping. Young Casilia was already dead. Her skull crushed. Her body lying in the barn. So who was singing? I found a statement I'd never seen referenced in any historical account. A junior constable named Otto Schweiger, who'd been among the first to enter the farmhouse on April 4th when a concerned neighbor finally alerted authorities. His report was marked excluded unreliable witness in red ink. Upon entering the bedroom where the infant Joseph and maid Maria were found deceased, I observed a cradle in the corner, rocking gently despite no wind or disturbance. Inside the cradle was a doll made of straw, dressed in an infant's gown. When I approached to examine it, I heard a child's laughter from the attic. I called for my superior, but he heard nothing. I must note, for the sake of honesty, that I have not slept soundly since, and I hear that laughter still. Otto Schweiger resigned from the police force 2 weeks later. I found his death certificate. Died 1924. Cause suicide by hanging. Found in his attic. Wind howling. Shutter banging. My hotel room phone rang. The landline, not my cell. I stared at it. Who even knew I was here? It was 2:47 a.m. I picked up. Hello. Static. Then underneath the static, breathing. And a voice, female, young, German-accented English. Hallo, Marcus. It's late. Why aren't you sleeping? Who is this? You know who I am. You've been looking at my pictures all night. I'm the little one. Kezilia. 7 years old. Forever. I slammed the phone down. It rang again immediately. I unplugged it from the wall. My cell phone started ringing. Same unknown number. I powered it off. My laptop screen flickered. The crime scene photos I'd been viewing began cycling through automatically, faster and faster. A slideshow of horror, until they stopped on one image. The attic access. The ladder leading up. And in the darkness above, just barely visible, a small white face looking down at the camera. A face that wasn't in the photo when the police took it in 1922. A face I recognized from my own childhood photographs. My face. Glass shattering. Alarm blaring. I grabbed my things, ran to the lobby, demanded a different room. The night clerk looked at me like I was insane, but he complied. Room 412, different floor, different wing. I locked myself in, shoved a chair under the doorknob, sat on the bed with my back against the headboard, watching the door. My laptop, which I'd left in the previous room, chimed with a notification. That was impossible. It wasn't with me. I checked my phone. I'd turned it back on, needed it for light, for connection to the world. Email notification. New message from Hinterkaifeck 1922 at GMXta Mailto. Hinterkaifeck 1922 at GMXta. Subject, room 412. Body of the email, you can't change rooms. You're always in our house. Attached was a floor plan. Not of the hotel. Of the Gruber farmhouse. With my current location, marked in the room labeled Maria's bedroom. Where the maid was murdered. Struck in the head with a mattock as she lay sleeping, never knowing what was coming. This is where most people stop watching. Right here at the 30-minute mark. They tell themselves it's fiction, it's not real, they'll finish it tomorrow in daylight. They never come back. Don't be them. What happens next, you need to see this. Drop a like if you're still here. I need to count you. I need to know how many of us make it through. I checked out at dawn. Drove back to Hinterkaifeck. I know, stupid, suicidal, exactly what the victims did, walking one by one into that barn. But I needed answers. Needed to understand what my grandmother had survived, what she'd never told anyone, what had marked her so deeply that she'd flinched at shadows for 80 years. The morning was overcast, threatening rain. The site was still deserted. No other cars, no tourists, no historical society members. Just me and the ruins, and the forest pressing in from all sides. I brought proper equipment this time. Flashlights, backup batteries, a GoPro camera mounted to my chest, recording everything. If something happened to me, at least there'd be evidence. Footsteps on gravel. Crows calling. The ruins looked different in daylight. Smaller somehow. Less menacing. Just old stones and rotted wood. But as I approached the attic access, that feeling returned. The sensation of being watched, of the space being larger than it was, of the air being thicker. I set up my main camera on a tripod, pointing at the attic opening. Check the footage, clear, stable. Then I did something incredibly stupid. I climbed up. The ladder was rotten, but the stone walls had handholds, remnants of the original structure. I pulled myself up, inch by inch, my chest camera recording my heavy breathing, my hands scraping against moss and old mortar. The attic opening was just large enough for me to squeeze through. The attic that should have been open to the sky, exposed to a century of weather, wasn't. There was a roof, old, intact, wooden shingles dark with age. There was a floor, wooden planks dusty but solid. And there were things, breath echoing, dust motes swirling, a rocking chair in the corner moving slightly, though there was no wind. A child's bed, the mattress long rotted away but the frame intact. A trunk leather-bound, brass fixtures green with corrosion. And on the walls, scratched into the plaster, hundreds of tally marks. Groupings of 5, the way prisoners count days. I counted them. 365. Exactly 1 year. Someone had been kept up here for a year. Someone had counted the days. Elise. The trunk's lid opened easily, hinges still functional. Inside, a small dress, a child's shoe, a leather-bound journal, and a photograph. The photograph showed the Gruber family, Andreas, Kazilia, Victoria, and 2 children. 7-year-old Kazilia and a baby. The baby's face was scratched out, violently, repeatedly, until the photo was torn through. I opened the journal. The handwriting was shaky, unpracticed. German, which I translated slowly with my phone app. Day 47, Father says I must stay quiet. Says the bad man will come back if he hears me. Mother brought me bread and milk, but she was crying. I don't understand why I can't come down. Day 103, I heard screaming. I heard Kazilia crying. Father told me to hide in the trunk and not come out no matter what I heard. I hid for 2 days. The screaming stopped. Now there is only silence. Day 156, someone is living in the house. I hear them walking around at night. It's not Father. The footsteps are wrong. Too heavy. Sometimes they stand below my floor, and I can hear them breathing. Jesus Christ. Elise had been hidden in the attic before the murders. The parents knew something was coming. They'd hidden her weeks, maybe months in advance. The tally marks, the journal entries, this wasn't a hiding place. It was a cage. A protective cage. Wood creaking. Something moving in the corner. The rocking chair was moving faster now. Back and forth, like someone was sitting in it, agitated. I turned, camera capturing everything, and I saw her. Not clearly. Not solid. But a shimmer, a distortion in the dusty air. The shape of a small girl in a pale dress, standing by the trunk, watching me. Her face was indistinct, but her eyes were holes, dark and endless. She pointed at the journal. I looked down. The pages were turning by themselves, flipping to the last entry. Day 365, the man came back. I heard him talking to someone downstairs. He said I kept my end. Where is she? And another voice, deeper, not human, said, she was never yours to keep. The debt is paid in blood, but the firstborn must remain. The man was angry. He said he would burn the house down. Then I heard the axe. I heard grandmother scream. Grandfather. Mother. Kazilia. The maid who just arrived, poor Maria who didn't know. I heard all of them die. And then the man came to the attic door. He called my name. Elise, he said. Elise, I'm your father. Come down, child. It's over. But the other voice said, she's mine now. You've forfeited your claim. And I heard my father, my real father, not grandfather, I heard him scream. He's still screaming. I can hear him in the walls. He'll scream forever. That's the price. And I'll stay here in this attic until someone comes who shares the blood. Until the debt can be transferred. The journal entry was dated April 3rd, 1922. The day before the bodies were discovered. Elise had been up here alive when the police searched the house. When Otto Schweiger heard the laughter. When the neighbor heard singing. She'd been here a 1-year-old child for an entire year, and then she'd. Footsteps on the ladder. Heavy. Climbing. I spun. My camera caught it all. Boots appearing through the attic opening. Old-fashioned leather boots caked in mud. Then legs. A coat. A man pulling himself up into the attic, his face obscured by shadow but in his hand. A mattock. Head stained dark. Handle worn smooth from use. He stood up, and I saw his face. My face. Older, gaunt, hollow-eyed, but unmistakably me. "Hello, Marcus," he said in my voice. "I've been waiting. Did you really think you could inherit this place and not pay what's owed?" 45-minute mark. This is the point of no return. You've come this far. You've learned too much. You're part of this now. Just like I am. Just like Elise was. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because you're going to need to see what comes next. I promise you, the ending will destroy you. I did the only rational thing. I jumped. I threw myself backward through the attic opening. Fell 8 feet. Landed hard on the stone foundation floor. Rolled. Felt something in my ankle snap, but didn't stop. Scrambled to my feet, my left foot screaming in agony, and ran. The camera on my chest was still recording, bouncing footage of sky and trees and the ruins shrinking behind me. Behind me, I heard him. Me. Climbing down. Methodical. Unhurried. The sound of the mattock scraping against stone. "You can't run from yourself, Marcus." My own voice echoed through the forest. "I'm the part of you that knows the truth. The part grandmother tried to bury but couldn't." I reached my rental car. Fumbled with the keys. My hands were shaking so violently I couldn't get the key into the ignition. In the rearview mirror, I saw him emerge from the ruins. Walking steadily toward me. 50 yards. 40. 30. The key slid in. The engine turned over. I threw the car into drive and floored it. Gravel and mud sprayed as the vehicle fishtailed wildly before the tires caught traction. I didn't look back. I didn't stop until I was on the Autobahn, speeding toward Munich, my ankles swelling purple, my breath coming in ragged gasps. My GoPro was still recording. I pulled into a rest stop, took out my laptop, and reviewed the footage. The attic. The trunk. The journal. The rocking chair. All captured clearly. Then the moment when I saw the girl, the shimmer. But on the footage, there was nothing. Just empty air. Then the footsteps on the ladder, my camera jerking as I turned. Nothing. No one climbing up. No man with my face. The attic opening was empty. But the audio. "Hello, Marcus. I've been waiting." Clear as day. My voice. And underneath it, other voices. Whispering. Dozens of them. In German. In English. Layered over each other. The debt. Firstborn. Blood for blood. 6 dead, 1 spared, 1 claimed. You cannot leave. And then, loudest of all, a child's voice singing a lullaby. The same lullaby the neighbor had heard in 1922. Schlaf, Kindlein, schlaf. Sleep, little child, sleep. Der Vater hut die Schaf. Father guards the sheep. Die Mutter shoot als Beumelin. Mother shakes the little tree. Da felt herab ein Treumelin. Down falls a little dream. Schlaf, Kindlein, schlaf. Hospital sounds. Beeping monitors. Antiseptic smell. I drove myself to a Munich emergency room. Told them I'd fallen hiking. They x-rayed my ankle. Fractured, not broken. I needed a boot and crutches. The doctor was young, friendly, asked where I'd been hiking. I told him Hinterkaifeck. His smile vanished. You went to Hinterkaifeck. Alone? Yes. I'm a historian. Researching the murders. He stepped back like I'd told him I had a contagious disease. Called in a nurse. Finished the rap in silence. Left without the usual pleasantries. The nurse, an older woman with kind eyes, leaned in close as she adjusted my crutches. "Don't go back there," she whispered. My great-uncle was one of the investigators. He said that place doesn't let people go. 3 members of the original investigation team died within 5 years. Suicides, accidents, they all heard things, saw things. He said the dead there aren't resting. They are waiting. Waiting for what? For the debt to be paid. I left the hospital with painkillers I didn't take. I needed my mind sharp. I checked into a different hotel. The Hilton. Modern. Glass and steel. As far from creaking wood and shadowed attics as possible. I booked a flight for the next morning. I was done. But that night, lying in bed, ankle throbbing, my phone lit up with a notification. The same email address. Subject line, "She's coming home." The email body was one sentence. "We sent her away to break the chain. You brought her back by accepting the deed. The contract is renewed. 6 must die again unless the firstborn takes their place." Attached was a video file. I almost deleted it. I should have. But my hands tapped it open. Shaky footage. Night vision. Green and grainy. Someone walking through a house. My house. My flat in Cambridge. Down the hallway. Past my bookshelves. Into my bedroom. The camera panned to my bed. I was there. Sleeping. This was being filmed in real time. Right now. While I was in Munich. The camera zoomed in on my sleeping face. Then from off-screen, a child's hand entered the frame. Small. Pale. Holding something. A mattock. Child-sized. The hand reached toward my sleeping self's head. Just before it made contact, the video cut to black. Text appeared. "You have 3 days to return. 3 days to complete the ritual. Or everyone you love dies as the Grubers died. One by one. In their own homes." While we watch, my phone buzzed. Text messages flooded in. "My brother in London. Marcus, did you send me something? There's a package here addressed from you, but I didn't open it yet. Smells weird. My colleague, Dr. Carlson. Marcus, there's someone in my office. I can hear them moving around, but when I look, there's no one there. What did you find in Germany? My ex-girlfriend, Sarah. I hadn't spoken to her in 2 years. I know this is strange, but I keep seeing a little girl in Victorian dress standing outside my apartment. She's holding something. Marcus, I'm scared. They were targeting everyone. Everyone connected to me. The debt was expanding, trying to fulfill its quota. 6 victims. It had claimed 6 in 1922. It wanted 6 now, unless the firstborn takes their place. Elise was the firstborn of Victoria Gabriel. She'd been spared, hidden, protected, but the debt had never been paid. It had only been postponed, transferred, and now it had found its way to me. Her great-grandson, the inheritor of her bloodline and her terrible bargain. I had 3 days to return to Hinterkaifeck. 3 days to go back into that attic. 3 days to take Elise's place and end the cycle. Or everyone I loved would die screaming. Wind howling. Shadows lengthening. This is minute 62. You're almost at the end. Just 3 more minutes. Don't stop now. The people who stop here tell me they regret it. They say the story follows them anyway. Better to know the ending than to live in the not knowing. I'm recording this from the attic. It's April 3rd, 2024, exactly 102 years and 3 days since the Hinterkaifeck murders. I drove back this morning, walked past the memorial stone, climbed up into the ruins one final time. The attic is exactly as I left it. The trunk, The rocking chair still moving slightly. The journal. And the shimmer in the corner that I now know is Elise. My grandmother as she was in 1922. 1 year old. Trapped between life and death. Neither dead nor alive. Waiting for someone to break the chain. The man with my face hasn't appeared again. I understand now. He wasn't real. He was what I would become if I ran. If I let the debt claim 6 more victims. He was the version of me who chose self-preservation over sacrifice. And he's been screaming in these walls ever since. Just like Victoria's husband. The real father who tried to save Elise and failed. I found more in the trunk. Documents. A contract. Written in German and something older. Something that predates German. Something that might predate language itself. It's a pact with something that lives in the forest. Something that was here before the Grubers. Before the village. Before humans built farms and churches and pretended the darkness could be kept at bay with candles and prayers. The pact is simple. Prosperity. Protection. Bountiful harvests. Healthy livestock. In exchange for a tithe. Every generation. The firstborn child. Given freely. Willingly. Or taken violently if the family tries to break the contract. Andreas Gruber tried to break it. He hit Elise. Thought he could outsmart an entity older than Christianity. So it took everyone else. Punished him by making him the instrument of his family's destruction. The evidence suggests Andreas himself was forced, possessed, controlled to swing the mattock that killed his wife, his daughter, his granddaughter, and the maid. And then his task complete, the entity discarded him. Left his body in the barn with the others. But Elise remained. The debt unpaid. And she waited. 102 years. She waited for the bloodline to forget. To scatter. To weaken. And then she reached out. Sent that deed. Drew me back to the place where it all began. I say aloud, I'm sorry, grandmother. The shimmer moves closer. I can almost see her face now. She looks peaceful. Tired. I understand now. You survived because someone was supposed to come back. Someone was supposed to finish it. End the cycle. Pay what was owed. The journal is in my lap. I've added my own entry. The final entry. April 3rd, 2024. My name is Dr. Marcus Webb, great-grandson of Elise Gruber. I accept the debt. I take her place. Let this be the end. Let the 6 who died in 1922 rest. Let my family, my friends, everyone touched by this curse be released. I give myself freely. I sign it in my own blood. I pricked my finger with a rusty nail from the trunk. The moment the blood touches the page, the attic changes. The roof solidifies. The walls strengthen. The rocking chair stops moving. And Elise, the shimmer, begins to fade. But as she fades, she smiles. Just a little. And I hear her voice. Clear. In English. Thank you. Sleep well, little one. The lullaby begins again. But this time it isn't frightening. It's comforting. A mother's voice. Victoria's voice. Singing to her daughter across a century. Schlaf Kindlein schlaf. My eyes are heavy. So heavy. The mattock is in the corner. I don't remember seeing it there before. I don't think I'll need it. The debt is paid with acceptance. Not violence. I lie down on the old wooden floor. My head rests on the rotted mattress of the child's bed. I close my eyes. I'm so tired. I hear footsteps below. Multiple people. Voices calling my name. The police, probably. Someone must have seen my car. They're climbing up. They'll find me here. They'll find the journal. They'll find the camera. Still recording. And they'll know. The Hinterkaifeck curse is broken. Or maybe it's just beginning again. Maybe every 100 years, someone has to come back. Maybe the contract renews. And renews. And renews. Maybe the thing in the forest never stops collecting. Maybe you, listening to this, watching this, maybe you have German ancestry you don't know about. Maybe your great-great-grandmother was named Elise. Or Victoria. Or Casilia. Maybe there's a deed waiting for you in the mail. Maybe. The recording cuts to static.